The power of the shift begins the second you stop negotiating for a woman's attention and start valuing your own space. Most men view walking away as a white flag of surrender, assuming that their silence simply gives her the win or allows her to move on without a second thought. In reality, the human brain doesn't work like a light switch. Emotional bonds are deeply wired into the nervous system and don't just evaporate because the talking stops. While you were present, consistent, and always on call, you became a known quantity. Essentially, you were predictable. While predictability provides a sense of security, it also lowers your perceived value because there is no mystery, no challenge, and no fear of loss. You weren't a priority. You were the background music of her life, always there, but rarely truly listened to. By stepping back, you fundamentally change the environment. You introduce psychological contrast, which is the brain's tendency to only notice the value of something once the constant is removed. Think of it like a humming refrigerator in a quiet room. You don't notice the sound while it's running, but the moment it cuts off, the sudden silence is deafening. When you remove your energy, your texts, and your emotional support, you transform from background noise into a noticeable void. This shift forces her subconscious to stop relaxing and start evaluating. Without you there to provide a safety net, she is forced to confront the reality of life without your influence. This creates an immediate power rebalance. You are no longer the one chasing for validation. You are the one who has reclaimed his time, leaving her to wonder why the predictable man is suddenly gone. Deep reflection is almost impossible while you are still in the pursuit. When you are constantly chasing, explaining your intentions, or defending your character, you are essentially providing her with an emotional safety net. As long as she knows you are trying to convince her to stay, she doesn't have to face the consequences of the breakup because your energy is still filling her space. By stepping away, you remove that net. You stop being the person who manages her emotions for her, forcing her to sit in the stillness of her own thoughts. In that silence, she finally feels the actual weight of your absence. This isn't a trick or magic. It is a fundamental human pattern. We are psychologically wired to take constant access for granted and to only reassess the value of a resource once it is no longer available. As the access she had to your time and attention disappears, it creates a vacuum that her mind naturally tries to fill with curiosity. She begins to wonder what you are doing, who you are with, and why you are no longer trying to bridge the gap. This curiosity is the engine of attraction. As her mind focuses more on you during your absence, a process called fading affect bias begins to take place. This is where the human brain naturally softens the edges of negative memories, the arguments, the tension, and the frustration, while the positive memories of your warmth and stability start to shine through. Because you aren't there to provide new conflict, her mind begins to rewrite the story in your favor, highlighting what she lost rather than why she left. The reflection process is a psychological cycle that only triggers when you remove yourself with absolute composure. If you leave in a storm of anger, you give her a reason to stay guarded. But when you leave quietly, her mind is forced to process the loss through 3 distinct stages. The first stage is relief. Immediately after a breakup or a period of high tension, the human nervous system seeks a reset. She feels a temporary sense of lightness because the difficult conversations and emotional intensity have stopped. During this phase, she convinces herself she made the right choice, because she finally has space. However, relief is a fleeting emotion. It's the absence of pain, not the presence of long-term fulfillment. As the days turn into weeks, she moves into the evaluation stage. This is where the breakup stops being a theoretical idea and becomes a lived experience. While you were still calling or texting, she hadn't actually lost you yet. She just had the idea of losing you. But once you are truly gone, the silence becomes a physical reality she has to wake up to every morning. Her brain begins to cross-reference her current life, which is now quieter and perhaps lonelier, against the stability you once provided. She starts to realize that the freedom she wanted also came with a cost, the loss of your support and presence. The final and most powerful stage is contrast bias. This is a cognitive shortcut where the brain determines value by comparing two different states. Because you are no longer there to provide a constant stream of attention, your past loyalty, consistency, and energy suddenly move from the background to the foreground of her mind. We rarely appreciate the oxygen in the room until the door is sealed shut. In the same way, she didn't have to value your loyalty when it was guaranteed. Now that it's gone, the contrast between your former presence and her current void makes your best qualities shine brighter than they ever did while you were together. She isn't just missing a person. She is missing the high-value emotional environment you created, which is much harder to replace than she initially thought. The biggest mistake most men make is succumbing to the urge to check in or remind her that they still exist. When you reach out too soon, whether it's a just thinking of you text or a calculated social media post designed to get a reaction, you effectively kill the emotional tension her mind was beginning to build. Think of it like a clock that starts ticking the moment you go silent. Every time you reappear, you hit the reset button. By popping back into her life, you provide a hit of validation that reassures her you are still waiting in the wings. This removes the fear of loss and allows her to comfortably remain in the relief stage of the breakup because she knows she hasn't actually lost access to you yet. You aren't giving her enough time to actually miss you because you keep interrupting the silence. When you remain grounded and genuinely focused on your own life, you allow the law of scarcity to take over. Scarcity is a fundamental rule of human nature. We naturally assign higher value to things that are limited or hard to obtain. By withdrawing your energy, you aren't playing a game. You are practicing high-level self-respect. This detached energy is incredibly powerful because it creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance in her mind. Her brain starts to clash with two conflicting thoughts. I thought I wanted to be away from him versus why am I bothered that he's not chasing me? Because you aren't acting like the rejected version of yourself she expected, she begins to question her own judgment. She starts to wonder if she misread your value or if you've emotionally moved on to something better, which shifts the curiosity from, what is he doing, to, did I just make a huge mistake? In relationships, men often mistake intensity for impact. They think big romantic gestures, loud arguments, or dramatic displays of passion are what keep a woman attached. However, female psychology, specifically the way a woman's nervous system bonds, is actually far more responsive to consistency. While intensity is exciting in short bursts, consistency is what creates long-term emotional safety and deep-rooted attachment. When you provided a steady, reliable presence over time, you essentially trained her nervous system to rely on your energy as a stable baseline. By walking away calmly and maintaining your dignity, you aren't just leaving a person, you are withdrawing a rare and valuable emotional resource. Most men fail here because they react with chaos. They beg, they blow up her phone, or they spiral emotionally. When you do that, you actually help her move on because your weakness validates her decision to leave, making her feel like she dodged a bullet. When you accept the reality of the breakup without collapsing, you signal a level of internal strength that is incredibly rare in the modern dating world. By moving forward with your life instead of staying stuck in her orbit, you transform your past consistency into a golden standard in her mind. As she moves forward and experiences new interactions with other people, she will inevitably begin to compare them to the maturity and steadiness you displayed. Most people are inconsistent and emotionally reactive. When she encounters that instability in others, your past behavior starts to look like a premium experience she didn't realize she had. Your self-respect becomes a silent benchmark. She begins to realize that while intensity is easy to find, the calm, grounded strength you provided is nearly impossible to replace, making your absence feel heavier with every passing day. To truly become a missed opportunity, you have to understand the difference between performing growth and embodying it. Many men make the mistake of revenge posting at the gym or flaunting new purchases just to get a reaction, but women are highly intuitive. They can sense when your progress is a desperate plea for attention. Real evolution is quiet. When you genuinely invest in your career, your physical health, and your mental resilience, your entire vibe or energetic presence shifts. You stop carrying the heavy, needy energy of someone who was rejected and start projecting the self-contained energy of a man who is going places. This shift is powerful because it changes the narrative from "he lost me" to "I lost him." When a woman sees, or even just senses through the grapevine, that you are thriving without her, you represent a version of yourself that she no longer has access to. You become a living upgrade. This realization triggers a specific type of emotional urgency that is much deeper than simple loneliness. Loneliness is just wanting someone to talk to. The recognition of a missed opportunity is the realization that she let go of a high-value asset just as it was reaching its peak. This creates a psychological phenomenon where she begins to reassess her own value relative to yours. She may reach out with a casual text or a like, but the underlying motivation is often a need to see if the door is still open to the superior man you've become. She isn't just checking on you, she's checking to see if she still has the power to reclaim the value she accidentally threw away. The ultimate position of power is reached when you cross the threshold from waiting for her to surpassing the need for her. Most men spend the period of silence in a state of suspended animation, essentially holding their breath until their phone lights up with her name. But the real psychological shift occurs when your inner peace becomes independent of her choices. When you reach a place where you are genuinely okay, regardless of whether she stays or goes, your energy changes from needy to non-attached. This isn't about being cold or hateful. It's about having a level of self-contained stability that is incredibly rare and magnetic. Women are highly attuned to this shift. If you are still needing her, she can sense the invisible thread of attachment. But when that thread is cut, she feels the loss of control, which often sparks a profound sense of respect. Respect is the only soil in which lasting attraction can grow. Without it, any reconnection will just be a repeat of the old, broken dynamic. At this stage, you stop being a participant in a game and become the observer of your own life. You move from a defensive mindset, hoping and praying she realizes your worth, to an offensive mindset where you are the one conducting the evaluation. You stop asking, "Will she come back?" because that question implies she holds all the power. Instead, you begin to ask, "Does she deserve the man I have become?" This change in perspective is the hallmark of a leveled up man. Even if she never reaches out, you have already won because you have reclaimed your identity from the wreckage of the relationship. This radical self-sufficiency is what makes a man truly unforgettable. It is the X factor that haunts a woman's mind long after the breakup. She realizes that she is no longer the center of your universe, and that realization that you have outgrown the old version of the us she walked away from is the most powerful message you could ever send.